going to look for the clinical progress note, which we looked at in just a moment ago. I'm going to select the clinical progress note. Just as we would expect, it opens up in a new tab within the patient chart so that we can navigate between everything that we're looking at, we're looking to find. You'll notice here that we have various different clinical notes for John here. So if you have a particular template that you're going to be completing a lot of times while the client is in treatment with you, you can see a breakdown of all the times that it was created, the effective date of those sessions, what the status is of that particular session, and who created it, right? In this case, just seems to be my user account in this example. Now, what we can do to create a new one is we can simply select the new button. Quite simply, this is going to open up for us, as we can see. As we're used to, the diagnosis codes that we have entered already for the patient is going to be brought over here by default. We can see here that we have the option to select a treatment plan. So this is another really handy functionality of the system that we can bring over any information from any of your other documentation that you may have completed. In this example, we're showing you a very common example, which is bringing over the treatment plan goals and objectives over into a clinical note so that if you're going over any of your objectives on this particular session, you can say, you know what, on this particular session, the client will identify 5 contributing factors to their self-harm urges. And if you made any progress on this particular session, you can say, you know, progress was made here. All right, you can make note of this, and this is going to apply to the end result that we're going to look at in just a moment. Now, one thing to consider here is how the statuses work. So we do have 3 statuses that you can place your documentation in, and this is going to be for organization and workflow throughout your organization. You see, the draft status, what it's going to do is signify to your colleagues and other individuals in the organization that this is still something you're working on. And what it's going to do is allow you to save your progress as you're going through your templates without having to suffice any required fields. So this means that if you're working on a particular service, if you're doing your documents and you want to go to lunch, what you would do, put it in a draft status, save your progress, come back to it later, right? And you can see that I saved this in a draft status, and that's going to show here when I close, hey, this is a draft status document. So I can hit the 3 dots, I can use the edit function, and I'm back here working with the document I was just working on. Now you'll notice that if I select the pending option and I try to save, the system, as I mentioned before, is going to actually enforce required fields. So one thing as a, you know, if you're a clinical director or a compliance person or a billing person, and you need your providers to be actually completing the documentation in a way that's going to allow you to bill properly, what you would do is enforce certain requirements on the form to make sure it's being done, you know, correctly. And you'll see that we can't save to pending, we can't save to completed unless we have sufficed our required fields. So let's go ahead and do that. I can select my duration, I can select my focus of session. One thing I'd like to show you is that a way to actually create documentation in a much faster way is actually for our text areas is to save items to these different areas. So as an example, I can say here, you know, this is going to be a saved value. And this can, you know, this is a very succinct example of how this may be used. However, you may want to actually relate this to something you may commonly type here in the focus of session. And what we can do is we can actually save the value just like so. And you'll notice here that I've now saved this value. So I can remove this, I can select these 3 dots, and I can apply that saved value much faster. Okay, and the idea would be that for all of your text areas, which these are all text inputs here that you can see, they all have these 3 dots that would allow you to save commonly typed phrases and paragraphs so you can go through your documentation much faster. Call this Smart Notes, everybody. So Smart Notes is available for you here. Okay, so that's how this works. We can see here that we can, you know, type in here as needed. I'll hit the save button once more and notice that it's prompting me for my therapist signature. So this is the last portion that I need to add here. I can select click to sign. You can see here that I can use a physical Topaz pad that works with our system. I can use the mouse option, or I can simply use my signature that has been predefined to my profile. And as I select using my signature, we can see our nice squiggly line here that applies my name and applies the timestamp of when I am signing here. We can now hit the save button. And since we have sufficed all of our required fields, we are now able to save our progress. An additional functionality you'll find here is the ability to tag other members of your organization. So as an example, let's pretend I needed my licensed therapist to co-sign here for me. What I can do here is I can use the @ symbol, and I can say, Rod, who might be my co-signer here, need you to co-sign on this note for me, right? And this is also an opportunity. You may want to communicate anything about this session that may be relevant. Client has reported some domestic abuse in the house, or client has reported another sort of issue that we may want to deal with. You can communicate all of these things to your colleagues and make sure everyone's being notified and things are working efficiently at the organization. So I can post this, as we can see. This is just going to be for our colleagues. This is not going to be part of the patient chart. And we can save that to generate a automatic notification to Rod or any colleague you might select. All right. So that's our documentation sort of overview. That's about maybe